Well, with a little bit more on what this election season could mean to the real, we are joined right now by Tony Volpon. He is the head of Emerging Market Research Americas for Nomura Securities, and he is with me now. What do you make of Credit Agricole's call, Tony, that it could suffer at least over the next month?
Well, insofar as this was a surprising result and people were not expecting the election to go to a second round, we could have some volatility. But I do think that, in fact, the real could even strengthen over this month. One of the reasons being is because a lot of people in the market expected some more energetic measures to be taken by the government to stop the appreciation of the currency that has happened over the last month right after the election, basically waiting for the election to get done and then announcing these measures. Now, with another month to go, I think these measures are not going to be announced, and therefore, we could see the currency appreciate a little bit, actually.
For those who don't know Brazil as well as you do, I mean, Lula is incredibly popular, the current president, 85% approval rating by some measures. So his hand-picked successor, what are the chances that she wins on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say?
Even though this was a surprising result, I still have to say that her chances of winning are around 7 right now. Basically, Serra would have to win something like 80% of the votes given to the third-party candidate that did so well in the polls, Marina, to actually pull ahead of Dilma, and that's very rare. Never in Brazil's history has a presidential candidate that went to a second round leading lost a vote.
All right, and Runoff, obviously, I just want to clarify, is, of course, Lula's hand-picked successor, yes, and her main opponent, Serra. Now, one of the reasons that Runoff is expected to win, right, is because she has pledged to continue everything that Lula has done for the economy to really strengthen Brazil's economy. What are the chances? I mean, the macroeconomic climate is different now than it was when Lula took over. What are the chances that she can keep it going? Well,
I think a lot of the reason Brazil has done very well over these last few years is because of the very strong demand for what Brazil exports that comes out of the fast-growing Asian economies, and we expect that to continue over the next couple of years. So, if either of these candidates have basically pledged to continue the policy framework that's in place right now, as long as Asia does well, Brazil should continue to do well.
Now, the Bovespa, Brazil's Bovespa, is up around 2.5% this year so far, pretty much the same as the S&P 500. Do you see the Bovespa pulling ahead of the S&P? I mean, can you make a clear call that those stocks are going to perform better than U.S. stocks?
Well, I think once this uncertainty is over and once the president is elected and gives the market a sort of forward-looking vision of what policy is going to be into next year, I think if that's done in a correct manner, the Bovespa could be pulling ahead. We've had very strong growth in Brazil this year, almost 7% of GDP, but I think that was discounted last year, and therefore the market's looking forward to what's going to happen next year.
Now, I imagine there's not a lot of at least individual investors sitting around, Tony, with a position in the real, but just how much could it appreciate, let's just say, over the next 12 months, given what you've talked about, this resource play from Asia, which is obviously driving growth?
In fact, we expect the real to go to 155 at the end of next year, so we have a very aggressive call that the currency will continue to appreciate very much on the back of this Asian dynamic for Brazilian exports.
Quick comment here. We heard from the Brazilian finance minister about the so-called currency war, and we've been talking about this larger theme of the race to the bottom. You don't think where every country seems to want to devalue its currency. How does this fit into your forecast for the real?
Well, the government has already been trying to do a lot of things to hold back the appreciation of the currency. They haven't been very successful. Brazil really doesn't have the framework in terms of fiscal monetary policy, for example, like China, to really hold its currency at a certain level. So I do think that, for this race in the bottom, the tendency is for the Brazilian currency to be one of the currencies in the world that continues to appreciate.
Okay. Tony, thanks so much for joining us to talk about it. Tony Volpon joining us there from Nomura.